Care doesn't always arrive as concern. Sometimes it shows up quietly, without emotion attached to it, without a sense of importance, and without the need to be recognized. This episode is about that kind of care, the kind that isn't trying to mean something. For much of life, care is tied to identity. We care because it says something about who we are. Being caring becomes a role, a value, a way of holding ourselves together. We notice how much we feel. We notice how invested we are. We measure care by intensity, but there may come a point when that structure softens. You still care. You still respond. You still notice what matters. But the care doesn't feel heavy anymore. It doesn't feel personal in the same way. At first, this can feel confusing. Without emotional charge, care can feel diminished. You may wonder whether you've become indifferent, detached, or less compassionate. But nothing essential has gone missing. What's missing is self-reference. Care without needing to matter doesn't announce itself. It doesn't build a story about goodness or responsibility. It doesn't need to be acknowledged. It simply shows up as response. You notice something needs attention, and you attend to it. You notice someone is struggling, and you respond naturally. You don't make it about being helpful. You don't turn it into evidence of character. You act, and then you move on. This can feel surprisingly light. There's no sense of carrying care forward as weight. No replaying whether you did enough. No measuring of emotional depth. Care completes itself in the moment. This doesn't mean you care less. It means care is no longer performing a function for identity. When care isn't required to prove anything, it becomes more precise. You respond to what's actually needed, not to what would confirm that you're a good or attentive person. You don't overextend. You don't withdraw. You meet the moment. This can be especially noticeable in close relationships. You may find yourself doing small things without thinking about them, checking in briefly, adjusting without discussion, offering support without framing it as support. You don't need to talk about it. There's less emotional commentary around what you're doing, less need to explain why you showed up or why you didn't. Care is no longer tied to intensity. It's tied to presence. You may also notice that you're less pulled into other people's emotional fields, not because you're closed, but because you're not merging. You don't feel responsible for managing their experience. You're available, not absorbed. This can feel like a relief if you've spent a long time carrying others emotionally. You're not bracing yourself anymore. You're not preparing to hold everything. You trust that responding is enough. Care without needing to matter doesn't seek impact. It doesn't need to be felt deeply by the other person. It doesn't require appreciation. It's quiet. This kind of care can be easily overlooked, even by yourself. It doesn't stand out. It doesn't register as meaningful in the way care used to, but it's often more sustainable. You don't burn out as easily. You don't feel resentful. You don't feel depleted. You give what's there to give, and you stop when it's not. There can be moments of doubt here. Am I doing enough? Should I feel more? Does this still count as caring? Those questions come from old frameworks. Care doesn't need to feel big to be real. In fact, care that doesn't need to matter often fits better into ordinary life. It doesn't interrupt the day. It doesn't require special conditions. It moves alongside everything else. You may notice that you care in quieter ways now. You remember small details. You adjust your tone. You leave space. You don't push for closeness or distance. You're not trying to manage connection. You're just responding. This episode isn't about becoming less emotional. Emotions may still appear, but they're no longer the measure of care. Care doesn't need emotion to function. It needs attention, and attention doesn't have to be intense. This can also change how you care for yourself. You may find yourself resting without making a case for it, eating when you're hungry without turning it into self-care, saying no without explanation. You don't need to justify care inwardly either. You respond to yourself the same way you respond to the world, directly, without commentary. There's a quiet dignity in this. Care without needing to matter doesn't try to improve the situation beyond what's possible. It doesn't force comfort. It doesn't rush resolution. It meets what's here. This doesn't make life smaller. It makes it workable. When care is no longer inflated by identity, it becomes part of the fabric of ordinary life. It's woven into what you do without standing out. This season isn't about deepening care. It's about unburdening it. Care doesn't need to carry meaning to be meaningful. It doesn't need to be remembered. It just needs to happen. If you're listening to this and noticing that care feels quieter lately, less emotional, less defining. You're not becoming indifferent. You're caring without making it matter. If these reflections feel like something you can return to, you're welcome to stay. Liking the video helps it reach others who may feel uneasy about quieter compassion. And if you want to keep a steady space like this available, you can subscribe, not for reassurance, but for companionship. If someone you care about seems different in how they show care lately, less dramatic, less expressive, you're welcome to share this with them, only if it feels right. Care doesn't need to matter to be real. It only needs to respond.